Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Muzen Wild Mini. This is a pretty cool mini Bluetooth speaker, and this brand specializes in unique designed speakers, which in the past have been made out of wood, giving it this retro vibe to it, and other versions as well that just looks pretty cute and unique compared to the typical designs that we often see, even ones inspired by record players. But this one, in contrast, has much more of a steampunk, kind of a rugged appearance to it. It's waterproof IPX5. Even if you splash some rain or water on it, it will still survive, and overall fits in nicely if you're just taking it outdoors, but still is quite compact and small. Even has a built-in torch, so it can act as a flashlight. It has an SOS mode. As far as some basic specs are concerned, it is of course using Bluetooth 5.0, and it has a 800 milliamp hour capacity battery, which is rated to last up to 8 hours of playback, and that is fairly good for a small mini Bluetooth speaker. And then on the inside, we have, of course, another case, or box, I should say, for the speaker itself that really is going with the whole rugged theme, and it just seems really durable, almost like something you would expect with a walkie-talkie or just some type of gear that the military would use. So ripping this open, we have another Muzen logo here on the inside. So definitely a very good presentation that they're going for. In fact, they even have foam located on the very top there to protect it during transit. So a lot of effort, of course, is going into the presentation, and that definitely adds to the cost along with the unique design that we see here. But if you're into this type of novelty gadget, it can still be a pretty cool accessory, I would say, to consider. So it says Born to be Wild, and then the speaker itself is a lot smaller than I was expecting. I mean, this thing is absolutely tiny, and yet it claims to pack up to 70 decibels in terms of volume, which is also quite loud. Here it is just as a quick size comparison with an average phone these days with a 6.5-inch screen, so you get the idea there of just how small this is. However, it still is very hefty as far as first impressions are concerned, because the entire thing is made out of this chunk of alloy. It feels very solid, and then we have a lot of these delicate little accents and a lot of fine details going on that we'll take a closer look at. Otherwise, we should have some additional accessories. This is protective with foam, including just a quick user guide. So this company seems like they've been around since 1964 and weighs 0.5 pounds, which again is quite heavy for something that is almost keychain sized. Last but not least, we have just a kind of a charging cable, which in this case is using micro USB. So that is one downside. I do really think, especially at this price point, they should go with USB Type-C, but it is what it is. So as aforementioned, it is giving us a lot of very fine details that is printed on here, designed by Muzen. And then we can also use this to, of course, change the dial for volume. Pretty tactile and responsive, and nice little clicky sound as you spin it around. And then finally on here, this can be pressed downwards to play and pause the music, as well as skip tracks once you are paired with a device. So all the mechanical keys here do feel very sensitive and well calibrated. The drivers here, of course, are also protected with a layer of metal alloy, and then we have a fine cap that is protecting the charging port. And inside here we have, of course, micro USB that is sealed off to prevent any water from leaking in. So overall, a nice fit and finish. And the metal does have some splashes or accents going on to it, just to make it seem a little bit more rugged, almost like something that you would see in an army gear, camouflaged. The back also has this pretty interesting X-shaped design going on with some soft touch rubber feet on both the bottom as well as on the back here. So if you set it down like this, it's not going to slide around. Same thing on the surface like that. Both directions will work. Last but not least, we just have access to a lanyard there for a keychain that you can attach it to, a backpack. So it might be a rival to something like the Gravistar Venus and some of the Gravistar speakers we've seen also in the past, which of course have a very different design and look to them, but I'd argue can exist in the same category of just being something that looks a little bit more unique and funky compared to normal, and if you're willing to get something more personalized. Alright, so going ahead and turning it on just by pressing for a few seconds. First of all, this is what the LED light is like. So it is indeed quite bright. Of course, doesn't use too much power. It has just 3 simple LED bulbs inside. Can definitely still come in handy just as a small flashlight built into this little speaker. And then the animation detail for turning it on is also really cool. So I can press for a few seconds to activate the Bluetooth mode, and you'll hear the series of beeps, almost like, again, it's a walkie-talkie or some type of radio equipment, and you see that intermittent flashing of that typical flashlight, but now it's just using a very dim brightness level to act as the indication that it's in the pairing mode. And after it's connected, you'll see that the flashing there will basically stop. It just has this very faint light that just pulsates a little bit to indicate that it really has been connected using Bluetooth. Alright, so just turning the volume down there, a few takeaways being that the audio quality is very impressive. Luckily, considering the premium price here, that it's not just a kind of fashion or style over substance, but really does still pack in an impressive sound, especially for the size. Surprisingly, there is even a little bit of bass, so as a drum beat hits, if you're listening to EDM music, it does kick a little bit in the background and shakes ever so slightly. Not to mention that we do still have very clean mids as well as trebles. So things like instrumentals and vocals, they all really shine through. I would say this rivals the quality of many other Bluetooth speakers I've seen that are easily twice or even 3 times the size, both in terms of the maximum volume output, which it can more than fill up a small space around you without any problems, and at the same time, again, remaining a good amount of detail, as well as not really sounding too piercing or sharp or shrill even at the higher volume levels. We can also use this to watch YouTube or Netflix, and it all sounds quite good. Very loud and clean, even though it's a single speaker, so you still don't necessarily get a stereo effect. So that is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review of the Muzen Wild Mini. And I have to say that I like this a lot more than I was expecting, primarily thanks to the attention to detail with the design. This thing is just super well built, as well as just giving us a lot of fine details with the lights, as well as the sound effects. You don't hear any voice prompts. Everything is almost in a retro style that is simulating a radio and a walkie-talkie, but again, all the parts do fit together really well as a novelty mini Bluetooth speaker if this is something that you are interested in. You can check out more details in the links below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Muzen Wild Mini.